My name is Tristan Jones, and like you said, I'm the graduate rep for the board here. My own work deals with tar sands extraction issues in northern Alberta. I do my work in the northeast or northwest end of the province. And I was asked to just give a couple of really brief comments about some of the connections that happen between tar sands and the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm going to make this super brief because we have this amazing panel here. They came in, several of you guys came in last minute. Andy is a friend of mine that we met at a healing walk in the tar sands, and I want to thank you right now for your awesome work in helping bring people out to this.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just say for just a second here, too, it's amazing to see a lot of folks here. Y'all pretty scattered all about. If you want to feel closer to the fight and closer to us, you could move on up to the front. That's a suggestion. Second suggestion is if you have other folks who are here at this conference today who maybe didn't know that this panel was happening, because I know a lot of these speakers were last minute, but these, are folks who've spent a lot of time out at the front lines and have some incredible stories to tell. So you can pull out your phone and text some friends who are here and say, hey, get on over here. There's actually a cool thing going on in this business meeting that you might want to be here for. So just a couple of suggestions, that's all.
And if you guys want to tweet this with the AMANTH2016 hashtag, that might help us too a little bit. Cool. Awesome. Right. So really quickly, what are some of the parallels? The Dakota Access Pipeline isn't a pipeline that's going to carry tar sands crude. It's for the Bakken Shale, right? So in some ways, these issues aren't necessarily directly related in terms of infrastructure. However, they're comparing the Bakken Shale to the tar sands, you deal with this issue of scale. It's the site of production. And because of the way that it's distributed and spread out, it doesn't necessarily make protest and direct action at the site of production as effective or as feasible as pipeline resistance, right? So we're very fortunate, well, I consider us very fortunate, there are camps and activists both in Canada and the United States who establish blockades on these pipelines. And these become important sites for people to come together and network, build activist infrastructures. And as far as my experience has been, there's a lot of sharing and learning of strategy and tactic that goes on in each of these spaces. I was at Standing Rock just for a day. It was very brief. It was after the injunction, so things were very quiet. But what was really remarkable was how many First Nations were represented on that site. There are hundreds of flags. I think there's over 300 U.S. First Nations that are represented, and many from Canada as well. So when we think about, what's that?
All over the world.
Yeah, from all over the world.
Absolutely.
And so we think about borders and mobility and how colonialism and these colonial borders can impede movement and things like that. Here we have international activists moving, investing their time, their resources into making sure that these state borders aren't as relevant to the struggle as they might otherwise be. With that, I'm going to turn it over really quick. One last plug. It's completely AAA unrelated, but there is a No DAPL fundraiser tonight at 5 p.m. I'll post that on my social media if anybody wants to seek me out. My name's Tristan Jones. Cool. All right, turn it over.
Okay, so excellent. Can y'all hear me? Oh, good. Cool. So what I think we'll do is I think each of us has a few thoughts to share at the beginning, and we'll go along and give our introductions and some opening thoughts. And then we really do want this to be a discussion. So from that point on, we'll be taking questions, and we'll be talking through that. So I guess I'll start since I'm speaking now. Just to say a few quick words. My name is Andy Pearson. Like Tristan said, I work with Minnesota 350. We're an organization that's mostly volunteer and very grassroots and based in Minneapolis, where we are now. Actually very close to the convention center, just a few blocks away. And we've been working on pipeline issues for about 4 years now as an organization. I've been involved for about 3. Are folks familiar, big picture, with 350.org and what that's about? Some people are. I see confusion and clapping, so I'm happy about the clapping. The answer to the confusion real quick, 350 is a number. It's an important number. It's the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, 350 parts per million, that we need to get back down to keep a climate that's actually a place we can continue living. And right now we're at about 400. So we've got to get back down and get back down pretty sharply, and a lot of what that means is keeping this carbon in the ground from places like the Bakken, so stopping these pipelines. And in our work at Minnesota 350, we approach it from a place of movement building and a place of climate justice, because if we approach climate only as a technical issue to solve, there's a whole lot of people who get hurt in the process, and we know that that's not acceptable for us. And so we see it as a lot bigger question, to say, how do we keep this in the ground in a just way that moves us to a place that we want to be? And so just very quick thoughts about Standing Rock. I've been out to the camps 3 times. I have not spent as much time out there as the folks here on the panel with me have. But what we've tried to do at Min 350 is bring large groups of people out. So we've run a few bus trips. So we've brought 150 people, 70-something people who wanted to come out to take part in direct actions, because it is direct actions that are stopping this pipeline project right now. We all know that Dakota Access is a pipeline that would carry Bakken oil to the rest of the world, crosses North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. And it is connected to the tar sands, just in that it might be used later to carry tar sands oil once the Bakken goes bust. But for right now, we know that we need to stop it from being constructed because of the massive threat to the water and to our climate, even from carrying this Bakken oil. I want to just say, just in closing, before I turn it over to the others on the panel, that the amount of resistance that is happening on the ground is incredible, and if you haven't been out there, I strongly encourage you to go. This is purely indigenous-led resistance out there at Standing Rock, and it is more than the world has seen in the last 100 years. So in terms of people's lived experience of anybody on the planet right now, this is unprecedented, what is going on. It has happened before in the history of the world. You could say it's in people's DNA, but it's not. It's in nobody's lived experience. And so what we are seeing here is history kind of being written again in some very, very interesting ways, very strong ways. And so with that, I will turn it over to Craig.
All right. Hello. My name is Luch Skaga. That means white dove in Ho-Chunk. I'm a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. My government name is Craig Moyer. If there are any elders in the house, I'd like to ask that they please excuse me for speaking out of turn. As Andy was saying, the prophecies, that this is what it is. If you've heard of the eagle and the condor, the 7th generation, killing the black snake, the rainbow warriors, I mean, it's now, it's happening. Andy had spoke about direct action, and I can tell you from experience, what that means is if you take one side, the peaceful, prayerful protesters, I don't like to use the word protest, it's a protection is what it is. And then on the other hand, you have really corrupt, brutal, just unnecessary enforcement that it consists of mercenaries, security, DAPL security, National Guard, police, sheriffs. I mean, it's quite the interesting reflection of good and evil, in my opinion. I've been there. I mean, I'm going to let Yash here tell you about our trip, because he's a better speaker than I am. I don't do this. And if there's anything I have to add on that, I will. And I think it will be best served for Q&A. But I can just tell you that it's a really curious moment in time right now.
As far as Standing Rock goes, I believe it's something that everyone has to experience. We owe it to ourselves and to the future to at least give ourselves an understanding of what's happening up there. It's intense in a lot of ways. There's a lot of damage being done, whether it's from a humanitarian perspective, whether it's from a climate perspective. The best way to describe it, I guess, is while I was up there, and I've been there a few times, I've experienced the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, followed by the most ugliest I've ever experienced. The beautiful part is the coming together of all kinds of different people. Yes, it is an issue of, civil rights, sorry. It is a civil rights issue for the most part, but to see so many different people come together and to fight this, it's an amazing, it's beautiful. I mean, everything that's right, while you're at camp, you'll experience everything that's right with mankind. You step outside the camp and you go on to the protest fields, you'll experience everything that's wrong with our society. You have corporate interests being treated preferably to humanity. You have people that are risking their lives, their jobs, their safety, their families, their security, leaving their the loved ones behind, all up there to try to fight the completion of this pipeline, which is going to affect all of us, whether you live here.
Tell them what they've been using against us.
Well, I'll get to that. There's the force is incredible. Our biggest weapon there is prayer and love, and that's on the protector's side. But that's being met with fully militarized police, riot gear. We're talking National Guard. You have military vehicles out there in these fields. It's completely unnecessary and uncalled for. And the First Amendment rights of the people are being stepped on in such a way that, I could sit here and talk about it all day, but I know you guys don't have the time for that. If there's any other questions in regards to anything that's going on up there, I'd love to answer them as far as the Q&A segment goes. But I'll pass it on to Samantha here, see what she has to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and thank you for having us here today. My name is Chaship Shoniwinga, which means First Eagle Woman Ho Chunk. And the experience was just beautiful. It's undescribable, really. Just thinking back on it, it's an incredible journey it was. And just seeing people come together, to me, it's just what this country needs. Just with the events happening in this world, I feel like this moment is bringing people together. And just being there really opens your eyes. It shows that, coming together is what we need in life. And it's a peaceful place there. We've been there a couple times now, and definitely will go back, but it's beautiful. I wasn't there on the front lines, but, people go out there thinking that that's what it's about, too, but really, it's support, it's prayer, it's beautiful, and I was really proud of my fiance and my cousin for being there, too, and experiencing that, and it was very horrific for me to see not only them experience that, but there was many, many people, over 400 people, that had to suffer and be arrested for unlawful reasons, just for, standing and fighting. And for me, seeing all the support at camp was just beautiful in itself. And I was very thankful for that, and it's just beautiful. It really was. More so. It was very, very horrifying, though, just what I experienced, too, how they treated the people there, but also the loved ones that were there, just trying to get them out. And that was my experience the first time we were there. Yeah.
You good? One thing we were thinking about doing on October 22nd, Saturday morning, was one of the main actions against protectors. And Yash and I experienced it together, but we have a little bit different outcome, because in our group of roughly 160, about 160 of us.
I think it was about 300 and some originally.
Okay. Well, we ended up getting split up, and one group got arrested, and one group got away. So just to give you guys a little illustration, a mental picture, after 3 hours of sleep in a tent, I wake up and my feet just feel like ice blocks. They're just cold. So I have to get up and I have to start the fire. And this is all before sunrise. And I get the fire going, and Yash wakes up because nature was calling. And instead of going right back to sleep, he sits next to the fire, and I had been, the directors at camp were calling for water protectors for a sunrise prayer and action. Now, we have no idea, because they have to keep it secret on what the action is. We have no idea. So you get up and you go, and you just do. And so this morning, the 22nd, that is, we answer the call. I didn't want to be insistent that Yash had to go, because I was just glad he was awake so I could leave without leaving unannounced. But there was no hesitation in Yash. He's like, we're going. So we go. Before we go to the action, we stop at the south gate at camp, and we do a prayer. It's just, we have an elder say a prayer. They were hoping that somebody had a chanupa, which is, nobody had one, so it doesn't matter. And then we all get in our cars, and we drive up about 3 miles to the frontline camp. Now, this is the major highway, 1806 in North Dakota, really close to Fort Rice, about 9 miles south of Fort Rice, if you need to look that up. But so then our direct action was actually met with a little resistance, because there was a divide, because where we had to walk through, was over the same desecrated burial grounds that they had bulldozed. And there was a divide on people that just wanted to go do something, wanted to make a direct action, and the sole purpose was just to go greet and thank the water protectors that chained themselves to the construction equipment, the bulldozers and whatnot. All night, we're talking really cold. Remember how I woke up? They were out there chained to machinery. And our whole purpose was just to go greet them and say thank you and that we love you and we're here. And
moral support.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, the frontline camp's on the main highway. We're about 6 miles in. This is all private land where we can all be arrested, and
no trespassing signs.
Yeah, but this is actually it was never ceded. It's actually treaty land from the 1851 Laramie Treaty. So there's a real conflict there, that they're just basically bullying, the indigenous people of that entitlement, I guess you can say. But anyways, so as we're walking down about 6 miles from the road and if you've ever been to North Dakota, you're not going to be able to hide anywhere. It's not exactly flat, but there really aren't any trees. It's just hills. You're not escaping, especially in broad daylight. But we come to a point, we must have got close to the water protectors that chained themselves up, because at one point the law enforcement, they drew the line, said, you're all under arrest. Well, as a group, we did some praying and we did some chants, and then as a group, we decided, well, we'll leave peacefully. And at first, it looked as though they were going to let us go, but they were macing people.
They never had the intention to.
Yeah, they were tackling people. They were trying to, because we were a group, that was the only way we survived. So when they could pick us off one by one, that's how people started to get arrested.
And it started out, sorry, Greg. It started out, they would point at, there was one gentleman there that was in full riot gear, and he actually had camouflage on, and his face was covered. He was standing back, no badges. He was standing back and pointing people out that had cell phones on them, that were recording and broadcasting what was going on.
I've got 12 minutes of video, and the only reason why I turned it off because they were singling us out, and I had to turn it off because at this point I'm in survival mode. So,
yeah, they were literally picking people off, and at first we felt like they were going to let us go, but that was never their intentions. And as we were retreating, we came up over this hill, and then you could see this whole valley where the creek was that we crossed. And you could see them cutting down a fence. And mind you, behind us, we have about 60 police officers. We have, military vehicles and things like that. And you come over this hill and you look down, and all you see is another 60 or 70 police officers that are cutting this fence and pouring onto the field and basically surrounded us. Luckily, we split up.
So here's what happened. When they started to corner us, we decided, what do we do? What would you do? We tried to walk around them as a group. That was our only play, was to stay together. And once we decided to move, they acted on us. And our group literally split. I was right in the split. Now, I got a gun pointed right at me. Today, I thought it was a shotgun at the time, but I think it was just the rubber bullets that they use, those kind of guns. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's not a shotgun.
It would hurt, but it wouldn't have killed me, I don't think. But anyways, I was personally in the split, and my attempts were to bring the group back together. Like, I knew that was our only strength, but they separated too much. And knowing that the group I was in was in immediate danger of the law enforcement, I jumped in the other group, and that's how I got away. And that's really where our stories differ, because from this point, our group is getting away, crossing a creek, going up the hills, going back the same way. I mean, to speak on the beauty and the unification, it really was beautiful. I know it sounds weird, but to see all walks of life, there were obviously Native people like myself, but there were Caucasians. There was this older lady that, we all banded together to get her across the creek. But apparently she got arrested anyways that day. I don't know how that happened.
She said thanks.
But it was really beautiful. I mean, the one thing that this moment will take, that I'll keep, is that reflection of such a stark contrast of beauty
And the beast.
And the beast. So yeah, long story short, for myself, I made it, and maybe you want to touch on what jail was like?
We have time?
Maybe like 3 minutes and then go to questions.
Okay. All right. So just in a nutshell, as far as the actual imprisonment part, they put us on buses. Now, mind you, we're all in full winter gear, and they put us on these buses. It was about a 45-minute ride, and once we got to the jail, they kept us on the bus. Actually, we pulled into this garage, which was actually obviously heated, and they kept us on this bus. Now, mind you, it's a school bus, packed full. I mean, there was even people standing. So we were jam-packed in there like sardines, and we all have our jackets, our sweaters, everything's still on, 3-4 layers, and we're overheating. There's people complaining about overheating and people about to pass out. And we pleaded our case, nothing helped. They ended up eventually, after another 40 to 45 minutes, getting us off the bus and making us wait in the garage for another hour or 2 or 3. With me, luckily, I really had to use the bathroom, so I was able to convince them to take me inside, and that's when it all really started, as far as the psychological mind games that they played with you inside to try to break your spirit and make sure that you don't go right back to the front line. That once you left the jail, you went home and you gave up. And that included lying to us. They knew a lot of us were ready to bond out and go back to the front line. So they delayed our booking process. Matter of fact, I didn't get booked until 26 to 28 hours after I was in jail. The reason for that, of course, it was they knew. My fiance was right there, ready to bail me out, but they weren't ready to let that happen. Matter of fact, they used it to lie to us and get away. They wanted to move us because if to paint a little bit of a picture, this is a jail that's supposed to house maximum 45 people. There was 141 people arrested that day, and there was already people in the jail as it was. So they lied to us, and knowing that we were, after 5 hours of being there, they didn't give us socks. It was cold inside the cells once you got there, and hot everywhere else in the jail, if you can imagine. No mattress, no blankets, nothing, just a jumpsuit and no socks, no pillows, nothing. And we asked for blankets. They turned the heat or the AC unit or the ventilation system off. So if you can imagine, there's 47 of us in that particular room that was supposed to house 15 people. So that was part of it. And then I started speaking out against, I found out they were lying to us, telling us they were gonna book us and putting us on a bus and moving us to different jails. And so I started speaking up about it. And because they didn't like the fact that I was making noise, they actually put me in solitary for the remainder of my time there. So I was locked in a little room by myself. As you can imagine, that was pretty intense. And you know, after that, I mean, even the following day when she was there she came to bail me out. They were telling her I wasn't there. They had no records of me being there, and as vocal as I was, I'm pretty sure they knew who I was.
Your unique name.
Right, and I don't exactly have an everyday name, so you know, there's a lot of that going on. Whether it's once you're locked up or at camp, there's planes flying over camp at any times of the night, low flying, so you know just enough to wake people up and make sure that they're not fresh the following day, and they don't have their full energy to be able to combat them. So it's crazy. They'll do that. There's actually been reports of crop dusters flying over there at night, spraying who knows what over the camp. So a lot of that information is being suppressed. So if you guys can do anything as far as alternative media to find out more and find out how you can get involved, I know the people at camp will greatly appreciate it. And I'll tell you this, you'll feel a lot better doing so as well. It's something that everyone needs to be involved with. It's not about natives. It's not about, I mean, it is, don't get me wrong. I don't want to downplay that aspect of it because it's their treaty land that's being, once again, taken and being exploited. But other than that, it is an every person issue. 18 million people will be affected if that pipeline bursts and spills into the Missouri River.
That's a minimum, by the way.
Minimum of 18 million people. So it is a huge issue whether you live there or if you live downstream from the Missouri, even if you don't. If you're from different parts of the U.S. or different parts of the world, it matters. It makes a difference, and it will affect you in some sort of way. And it's time that we stand up to these corporations that are out to destroy the world in order to pat their own pockets and let them know that we're not going to have it anymore.
Even if that oil reaches where it needs to go, when it burns, it has a higher carbon rating, so it's going to be even worse for the atmosphere. That's another reason.
We just have 5 more minutes to get into a conversation with you guys.
Okay.
I know that there are a lot of people who are going to have some questions.
Yeah.
But if we could just have some time for that.
So we will open it up now, but really briefly, if this seems really far away, if South Dakota seems, or North Dakota seems like it's on the other side of the earth, it may not be. In Ohio, in our little town of Athens and in Columbus, there have been an ongoing series of protests because the Ohio State Police have sent 50 troopers to be part of this police contingent. I don't know about other states, but for us, it's become a local issue. And yeah, with that, let's turn it over to Q&A.
And I wanted to ask about coalitions, but that's already been done in a great way. So my other question was about what kind of a generational moment this is. I'm at the University of Toronto, where we had a wonderful 350 campaign, which is why I clapped like a crazy woman when you mentioned it. The students lost, but they also won because they generated incredible political energy on campus, also amongst faculty. And I think for us, some of the activism that's emerged out of it, sustained activism that's emerged out of it, is we're directly indebted to the students for that. And so I have a sense that this is also a historical moment where there's a lot of listening that people who are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than you are have to do. That's certainly what happened on our campus. And I want you to maybe reflect a little bit on whether you have the sense that that's the case too. I know that some of our 350 students, together with 100 other young people, were just arrested in Ottawa 10 days ago. It was the largest climate action in Canada ever. And it's these acts of very coordinated and extremely brave forms of direct action and civil disobedience that we're seeing amongst a lot of our students. And so, what are the spaces where we can create listening amongst generations and learning? especially from the young to the older. The other thing is I'm really, really concerned about the violence that's, of course, long ongoing, but I think it's going to intensify. Can you reflect a little bit on that?
First of all, this has already been an indelible memory. You've touched my heart deeply from afar, and we appreciate you being here. I just want to say as one of these teachers in this dubious, precarious position that my students in Detroit, Michigan, across the realm, Black Lives Matter, everything else, this is a real chance for us to unite in ways that we haven't done in at least 50 years. I want to know directly, when we talk about direct action, indirect action is policy change, and they talk as if they're distinct, but we know that direct action perpetuates policy change. I'm prepared with my students to walk out of my class for a day, for a week, for as long as it meets, and I know there's a lot of like-minded individuals, as Margaret Mead said, that can change the world. And I want to know directly what we can do. That's A. B, I want to know if there's a GoFundMe site or something where we can help raise money for people who are being arrested.
As far as GoFundMe, be careful. There was a lot of scams on GoFundMe, people that are looking to take advantage of the situation to pad their own pockets. I actually had a former friend of mine approach me and ask me to set up a GoFundMe and skim the money, basically, which, needless to say, is no longer a friend.
I can give you a couple names if you want, for people that are regularly at camp that I know are quality people. Like, they have the best intentions and their integrity is awesome. The first name that comes to mind is a guy by the name of Myron Dewey, and he
Digital
is
smoke
with
signals.
Yep, and another gentleman named Dallas Goldtooth with Indigenous Environmental Network,
Indigenous Environmental.
and a lady by the name of Candy Mossett, Kandimosssett. Now, if you don't know where to find what you're looking for, find those people online, and they will direct you to the correct avenue.
And also, if you want frontline footage, the best source usually is, I think it's Etsa Isha. It's Etsa Isha. He's just a guy that's been on the front lines, is documenting everything. So,
I have another couple. So Unicorn Riot is a live streaming crew, and actually the fundraiser tonight, I think, Tristan, that you're talking about, is both for the legal fund and for Unicorn Riot, so that they're able to stay out there and keep getting that footage. There's also a website or an online fundraiser hosted on a website called Fundraiser, with some of the letters missing. And the way you find it is you type in the Freshet Collective, Freshet, and that is the coordinated bail fund that's been bailing people out across the arrests at the camps. I want to just take 30 seconds to hit really quickly on some of the other questions, which I really appreciate too, mostly around how to get involved. And to the individual who spoke first, one, I appreciate you acknowledging those connections that you have in this space, and I think that's really powerful. I also, my answer to most of these questions is, if you have time and resources, get out to the camps and spend some time there, because at least to my way of looking at it, I see that as actually being able to give you the information that you need and the emotional grounding in the issue that you might need to approach your family about it. I think that it's something that it's harder to learn about in an intellectual way. You know, it's just going to be more powerful if you've actually seen it and you've had a chance to experience that it's not as much of a hypothetical thing, and that maybe Kelsey Warren's attitude towards it is completely disconnected from the actual reality on the ground of people just being brutalized by law enforcement that's paid off by Kelsey Warren. And I've seen that, and I think once you've seen that, it's very hard to listen to that kind of rhetoric and to not want to push back against it and know how to push back against it.
It's literally a police state. The governor is bought. They're bought. As far as the gentleman that spoke, thank you. What I would do, to the best of your ability, is make it real. Make it real to that person. You know, show them, give them a glass of oily water and say, have your child drink this. That's what it's going to be. Or make them pay for this for $25. That's what it's going to be if we don't win, which we are going to win. Do it. Do it. Any actions you guys have, do it. have integrity and be peaceful. I would suggest being prayerful if you believe that, meditative, positive energy. As far as the lady, it's the real deal. I would suggest you go out there and you commingle with the natives there. And by the way, everyone is indigenous. Okay, you all come from somewhere, and that's the beauty of right now is that we're all coming together. It's just in a really ugly spot right now.
And this is our generation's wounded knee. If you're familiar with Wounded Knee, that's in so many ways it's being compared to that same. So this is historic, and to touch on what you said, like he said, if you can get a bus together and get these students up there, to have them experience it, and then go out and talk about their experiences, that's the best way to do it.
Is a good
Standing Rock, the resistance is a feeling and not a theory. So to get a perfect understanding of it, you have to be there. You have to experience it. That doesn't mean getting on the front lines. Just going there and supporting in some kind of way, whether it's cooking or doing whatever your craft is up there, whatever you can do to help the situation. Once again, it's an experience and not a theory. You have to get up there and see it for yourself.